Hi, my name is Emma, and I want to tell you the story of me and my wicked twin sister Julie. Plenty of people dream of having an identical twin, as they imagine it means you have someone exactly like you. And in some cases, yeah, it works this way. But in mine, having a twin sister was always a curse. Although we're identical when it comes to our looks, we're complete opposites when it comes to our personalities. Julie was extremely outgoing. She easily made new friends, but she wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed, if you get what I mean. My parents always said that I could talk when I was 7 months old, while Julie started when she was 1.5 years. Julie loved drama, and she loved stirring the pot, only to play the angel later. I, on the other hand, was always shy and a bit more reserved. For a long time, I also struggled with low self-esteem, and I wasn't really outgoing. A night at home with an anime marathon? Sign me up! Julie made fun of me because of that. She even went as far as to say if she were a single child, she could shine the brightest. It caused me a lot of pain since I never felt we were the same. For me, even if she was mean, Julie was my sister, and I didn't want to live in a constant war with her. Things only got messier when we started elementary school. At first, teachers constantly mixed us up, but soon they learned that Emma is the one who always gets A's on her exams, while Julie is the popular one. Despite being in the same class, Julie was liked by everyone while I didn't have many friends. In fact, for the first 3 years, I had no friends. It didn't bother me that much, since I had my books and my TV shows, so I felt like fictional characters were sort of my friends. However, at one point, a new girl joined our class, and she was the same as me, quiet and focused on learning. We got along pretty well, but that was a grain of salt in Julie's eye. She couldn't stand that from a group of 23 people, one person could prefer me over her. She started to turn my new friend against me, and unfortunately, our friendship didn't last for long. When we went to middle school, things didn't get better. In fact, Julie became vicious. I think she grew to hate me. In a way, she only looked at me as her rival and never as her sister. But what would happen by the end of middle school was simply terrifying. Being the social butterfly she was, Julie's popularity continued to grow, and everyone loved her. She was the most popular girl at school, while I stuck to my books. One day, our school was visited by an important guest. We didn't know who he was, but he talked with almost everyone at school behind closed doors, and he knew a lot about us. It was a bit terrifying, but when my turn came up, I went to the room where he had his temporary office, and he kindly smiled and greeted me.
Emma, I'm really excited I can talk with you,
he said, and I felt surprised. He knew my name and everything, but I never met him before. Who are you? I asked, worried about that situation. It was strange, but I didn't want to be rude. I only wanted to understand why he knew so much about me.
Well, I know you are a bright kid and you question a lot of things. So between us, I want to tell you who I really am. My name is Jeffrey Smith, and I'm a recruiter from West Brighton High School. I'm not sure if you've ever heard about our school, but it is a school for gifted kids where teenagers like you can reach their full potential.
I was shocked. I heard there were schools like that, but I knew how hard it was to get into any of them.
Have you ever considered a school like that for your high school, Emma?
He asked, and I felt stupid for the first time. My shyness took over, and I just blankly stared at him for a moment while I reminded myself how to talk again. Well, I always dreamed I could be in a school like that. I'm really hardworking, and I think I would fit in there perfectly. He smiled.
I think you would be a valuable new student for us. I know about your grades and all of your accomplishments. You should consider joining us. I'll be contacting your parents for sure.
I felt like my dreams were coming true. But then I opened the door to his office, and my sister Julie fell in onto the floor. She was standing behind the door and eavesdropping the whole time. "Are you mad?" she shouted at me as I was trying to help her stand. I felt how the inner rage was growing in me, and I just started shouting at her. "Julie, how dare you? Can't you give me any privacy?" And I felt tears coming into my eyes. She looked coldly at me and said, "I was also invited for a meeting. They told me to wait and go after you leave the room. No worries, loser. I will shine my brightest as always." And she pushed me out of the office and slammed the door in my face. I couldn't believe it. Why does she always need to be like that? Despite all the wonderful things Mr. Smith told me, I felt upset and just carried on with my day as usual. A few days later, Mr. Smith was gone and everything went back to normal. However, when Julie and I came back from school, our parents were sitting in the living room. It was quite unusual as, at that time, Dad was usually at work, and my mom was usually cooking dinner. As we approached them, they told us to sit down and that we needed to talk. They revealed to us that yesterday they were contacted by Mr. Smith, and the good news is that I've got a full scholarship to West Brighton. I could go to the school of my dreams and be more successful than ever. Julie, however, couldn't stand that we only talked about me, so she started to ask if he said anything about her. But she was pale as a ghost when our parents told her that he said only I was qualified. This meant that I would go to the very prestigious school in California while Julie would stay here. I was surprised she cared so much about it. She was never a good student, and being surrounded by brainy kids who don't care much about viral videos or celebrities would be more punishment than reward for her. However, it wasn't about the school. She just couldn't stand that I could be better than her. I knew she could do better at school, but instead of learning, she was scrolling through VicVoc all day long. Our days in middle school were coming to an end, and I was already dreaming about my new high school. Hello, West Brighton! I was also a bit thrilled that I would be there alone. As I said, despite Julie being mean to me, I still loved her and she was my twin, but I believe that splitting up was a good idea for us. She could play a single child in her new high school, and I could be surrounded by kids like me at my new high school. Isn't that a win-win situation? I thought Julie would understand that, but instead, she went quiet. After we graduated, we enjoyed our summer. Julie decided to go to the local high school, and most of her days were spent outside hanging with her friends, while I was always at home. I read all the information about West Brighton, and I was already studying so I could get a head start. Don't get me wrong, my summer wasn't only learning. I played video games, read books, and watched movies. I simply like to learn new things on top of that. In the last week of summer, I was expected to go to California so I could settle down in West Brighton's dorms for new students who, like me, traveled from afar, and so I could meet my new classmates. My parents were really moved and said I'm all grown up now and I no longer needed them. But I just hugged them tightly so they could know that, in fact, I will always need them. They couldn't let me just leave, so they decided to throw a party for me so I could bring happy memories with me to my new school. I didn't want anything big, but they really wanted to make it the best for me. Just for me. Once the topic of the party came to light, Julie started to be more present at home. I could see how angry she was every time I looked into her eyes. I thought it must be really uncomfortable to constantly walk with her jaw clenched, but I didn't want to confront her. All I cared about was that in a few days, I would be gone. The party my parents planned was huge. I couldn't believe how many people came to wish me all the best in my new school. Some of them even brought gifts for me. I was blushing a lot. But in fact, for the first time in my life, I felt special. I finally knew what it was like to not have to share the spotlight with Julie. She, on the other hand, was gone. Nobody could find her, and it was starting to get really late when she finally showed up. She found me in the crowd, and I could see tears in her eyes. Emma, I want to talk with you in private. I can't believe you are really leaving, and I just need to tell you something. I was surprised to see her in a state like that. Did she really have a soft side to herself, or was I just dreaming? I nodded, and we snuck out to the garden. Our house stood quite far from the others, and nobody else was in the garden, so we finally had some privacy. You see, Emma, it feels so weird that you would leave me. I know our relationship isn't the best, but I always felt that I've been in your shadow. Our parents, teachers, family, and everyone always praised only you, and they acted like I was nothing. I know the hatred and viciousness I directed at you can't be justified by that, but I want to give you something, so you will know how I truly feel. I couldn't believe my ears. I always dreamt we could be close like this, and that we would share a special bond. Julie, I love you. I've always loved you. You are my sister, and I forgive you for everything you've done to me. It doesn't matter now. I feel that it's best for us to go our separate ways, as it will give us a chance to grow without this constant feeling of hostility. And with that, I took her hands. Aw, Emma, you're so sweet. She hugged me and looked at me with a smile. Now, I will put a blindfold on you, because the next part of my gift is a surprise. She covered my eyes, and we took a few steps, and somebody hit me on the head. I don't know what happened next, as I was knocked unconscious. When I woke up, I was in a dark cellar in some new, unknown place. I tried to shout, but I was gagged with some cloth, and when I tried to stand up, I realized I was also bound with ropes to a large metal pipe. I looked around nervously, but I couldn't see anything in the darkness. Suddenly, somewhere in the room, a light appeared and started to grow as it approached. Somebody was walking towards me, and I felt scared. But it was Julie. You always thought I'm the stupid one. Well, guess who is locked in the basement of an abandoned house now? You see, it is now my time to shine. Since we are identical twins, I will take your place and become a new, cool Emma. And poor dear Julie. You see, tomorrow our parents will discover the note I left in my room where I explain I've run away and they will never be able to find me. The same way they will never be able to find you. Have fun! She laughed and left me alone. I sat in complete darkness and I felt how my tears were streaming down my cheeks. I knew she was mean, but now she turned out to be truly evil. In the darkness, I didn't know what time of day it was, but I knew I was feeling weaker over time. At first, thirst and hunger weren't really a problem since I stuffed myself at the party, but that didn't last for long. I tried to sleep as much as I could, but it was a problem since all the rats and spiders were crawling around me. I was sure this was going to be the end for me. I felt sad as I thought about my parents. I just couldn't understand how naive I was believing that Julie would do something good for me. I didn't know how much time had passed, but eventually I woke up to the sound of loud footsteps. Not just one person, but a full team of people.
Go to the basement!
Somebody ordered, and once again I saw a light in the distance. I didn't know what was happening, but I saw a policeman with a flashlight quickly running towards me. The last thing I remember is that he held me and was begging for me not to fall asleep. I woke up in a hospital and I learned what happened after my disappearance. After Julie abducted me, with the help of one of her friends, she transported me and locked me in a basement of an abandoned house in the suburbs of our city. She also took some of her own clothes and personal belongings and hid them alongside me in the house. Then, she came back home and snuck into my room where she dressed like me. The next morning, she left the house for the airport with our parents. Thanks to her social personality, she was also a great liar and manipulator, so she convinced them that she was me and she just felt nervous about the flight. They were sure that she was me. Fortunately, when our parents came back home and found her note, they immediately contacted the police. They went looking for her while Julie was at West Brighton. She was able to fool her new classmates, but she bumped into Mr. Smith, who immediately recognized her. He called our parents and sent Julie back to her home under the supervision of the school guardian. When she got back, both the police and our parents realized that it was me who was gone. The whole situation was unbelievable, but it was obvious that Julie knew the truth. She confessed to everything, and after 4 days, they found me. Despite being told everything, I still couldn't believe it. After 2 weeks, I left the hospital, and my parents brought me to West Brighton. Everybody understood what I went through, and they turned out to be a wonderful support. The entire experience changed me too. I was no longer as shy as I was before, and over time, I made new friends. In fact, I became the most popular girl at West Brighton, not because of what happened to me, but because I could shine for the first time. I was finally living my dream. As for Julie, I still feel sorry for her. I can't forgive her just yet. Maybe in the future, but I also understand that she has some deeper problems. After she attempted to steal my life, she was deemed mentally unstable, and up to this day, she is locked in a mental health facility where she is not a danger to anyone.